Hey, what's up, guys? So this week we had a little hiccup once again, and what I'm going to do is just another solo episode. Last time I did that, it ended up being a big hit. People really enjoyed it, but we'll see what happens today. We recorded a great episode this week with an infantry company commander, and I really enjoyed that episode. It's about 3 hours long, and that's what was supposed to come out this week. But for military purposes, he needed to delay the release for 2 weeks. So that's going to be coming out the first week of February. But like I said before, just to keep this show on schedule, I like to release content every Thursday that I just sit here and go over some thoughts on some things that people have been reaching out to me, asking me about. Obviously, the big thing over the last couple weeks was the riots at the Capitol. And that was kind of an interesting turn of events because, a lot of people supported what happened and then a lot of people condemned it. And it's interesting how everybody wants you to take their side on things like this. And if you don't, they're instantly mad at you. And something that I've been telling people lately is if we see eye to eye on 80% of issues, let's focus on that 80% and realize that we're allies, that we can see eye to eye on the majority of things that we're confronted with. And that could be a strong relationship and it could be beneficial to both parties instead of focusing on the 20% that we disagree on. And I mean, it's no secret in this last year, we've seen more and more and more division, and people are focusing on their differences a lot stronger than their similarities. And so it's a nuanced thing. There was a lot that took place at the Capitol last weekend. And, you know, there was things that transpired that I can't sit here and say that I enjoyed seeing. A young woman lost her life and a police officer lost his life. I think they're saying 5 people died, but I think only a couple of them. I want to say that police officer and that woman were like directly related to trauma. I think the others were medical emergencies that transpired during the events. But regardless of that, I watched the video of that young woman jumping. It looked like she was about to jump through the window and the officer shot her. And again, I mean, everything you hear and see on the internet is so convoluted. It's hard to know what was truly transpiring at that moment. And I made a mistake, and I'm first to admit it. I posted that night of a picture. Everybody that's listening saw this undoubtedly. The dude with the buffalo horns on, standing inside of the Capitol, and I said something along the lines of, "Something seems off here. This doesn't look to me like what I would envision a conservative movement trying to seize the Capitol or whatever the agenda specifically was." And I just said something looks off here. And there was a lot of people immediately on the internet that were like, they were paid actors by Antifa and those guys were agitators. And people were talking about seeing vans come in, dropping off Antifa members. And again, 10 minutes into this thing, you don't know what's fact, you don't know what's fiction, and myself included. And I don't even know if I would say I made the mistake of posting that because I didn't really draw any hard lines or convey it as a fact. I simply said, this doesn't look on its surface like conservatives that are pushing a conservative movement. And I stand by that. I mean, I don't think how they went about that, and I don't think it gained any ground. I don't think that it was some honorable thing to do and like pushed the conservative movement forward. I don't think it moved the needle. But there are things that took place as a result of that that I did enjoy seeing, and I can admit that. Um, and I'm going to go into details on some of that stuff. But in its core, what we saw was people outraged at our government, and it almost seemed like it turned into a mob mentality, and they used that outrage and just, yeah, I don't think this was pre-planned. It didn't seem like a coordinated effort. It seemed kind of a spur of the moment mob mentality. Yeah, let's go. And everybody just started pushing and pushing. I don't know if you saw the any of the videos. There was videos of the officers trying to hold the line, and the mobs of people were pushing, and they were even in unison, like heave ho, pushing back and forth. And yeah, and they broke the perimeter, and then they just flooded in. But what's interesting is you see little clips of video here and there. I know I saw one where it almost appeared like the officers were no longer willing to hold the line and just letting people through. And then the theories just start flowing, like, look, it was planned. The officers were allowing people to enter the Capitol. And this is what I always tell people. When you look at the government and you attach a complex theory behind the actions that they're taking, you're giving them too much credit. And that's honestly what I think. And I hate the word conspiracy theory because there's a lot of crazy shit going on right now. And there's a lot of underground things with secret agendas. And I mean, come on, you only have to look at 2020 for 10 minutes to understand that there's more than meets the eye on some things. But that doesn't mean that every single thing you see there's ulterior motives and hidden agendas. And to say that about the Capitol Police, you're giving them too much credit. And I'm not saying that disparagingly. I don't know anything about the organization. I don't know anybody that works for them, but they're a police department. And I can tell you that police departments aren't recruiting certain officers or deputies to go out and be part of these agendas. It's just not how it works. It's too complex and it's giving them too much credit. But the aftermath of those attacks is what really intrigued me. We saw so much. Oh, how would I phrase it? We just so much people talking out of both sides of their mouth. People just depending on what the riot was serving, they were just acting absolutely appalled. And what's shocking to me is we've been dealing with riots and violence for the last year. And so I'm going to touch on some of that stuff because it was really crazy to see how if the riot served a certain political party or a certain movement, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. But as soon as they were the victims of a riot, man, they're terrorists. I mean, are they terrorists? What are they getting charged with? That's what I'd like to know. I'm going to guess it's probably some type of federal criminal trespass. But and then in a moment's notice, police officers who have been demonized for literally the last year. Every police officer is a racist. Every police officer is just a piece of shit. Now they're heroes again, just like that. And if people can't see that the radical left is just using any situation they can to push their own agenda further. If you can't see that it's clear as day, I just ask you again to open your eyes. You know, all the riots across the nation of 2020, and I don't think we heard anyone on the left condemn them. I live in Seattle, and I saw what it did to that city. I had friends holding the line and working downtown, having their hands tied behind their back and not being able to do their job, not being able to enforce the law. They're asking you to go out there and confront these looters and these rioters, but they're not allowing police officers to be confrontational. And that's just, I mean, common sense says if you're going to go out and you're going to confront something that's violent, there's a good chance you're going to have to meet it with equal or greater violence. That's a very simple algorithm of the battlefield. And I don't know where in history we decided to start sending people out on the battlefield, but tell them that they can't use violence. Well, then it's a recipe for disaster, and the officers are doomed from the get-go. And so all the attacks on our cities nationwide that were under the guise of BLM were applauded. They were applauded by every single politician on the left for the last year. Uh, and like the Antifa movement and the Antifa agitators dropping pallets of bricks off, they just dismissed all of the things that were violent and the things that were serious, the things that hurt people and hurt protesters and police officers alike. They would never condemn any of it. But the second that a violent mob attacked the Capitol building, it was just hands across the board across America, like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And I can believe it happened. In fact, it makes sense that it happened. I like I said at the beginning of the show, I don't support mob mentality, moving into a Capitol and getting people killed or that police officer getting killed. Like, that doesn't make sense. That's not moving the needle in our direction. But if you can't say I understand why it happened, you're not being honest with yourself. And so if you look at how this all played out, we had our Congress in there. They are absolutely inept over this last year. And America feels that. Now, regardless of if you feel the election was stolen or not, and that's a whole other issue. That, to tell you the truth, guys, like, it's easy to sit here and say that it seems like it was, but I don't have any facts. I don't have any hard evidence, just like I don't think most people do. But it feels like it was, right? And so it feels like it was, and that is what people attach their emotions to, and they start to get really heated about things. But there are things that the government has been doing to people for the last year that is absolute fact that the leadership in our country has destroyed small business nationwide. It's destroyed our schools nationwide. And I've talked about that on some of my previous shows. What I have seen happen in my own children, their mental health, it is dramatic of how much this lockdown can affect an 8-year-old girl. On a side note on that, I finally got my middle daughter into private school, and they had a concert last night, and it was a Christmas concert. And obviously, I mean, Christmas is past, but they did it a few weeks late just because everything's difficult now and coordinating stuff. And they had to do it underground at their school. And the I guess you'd call him the principal of the school. He's the founder of it. He even said during the concert, no live streams, please, because I don't want people coming in here and disrupting the show. We're going to release a video of it afterwards, and then you can share with your friends and family, but I don't want to risk this event, which is just bizarre. I guess it's just bizarre that that's the times we're in. But I digress. Regardless, my whole point of talking about my daughter getting into private school is in 1 week, she's been there 1 week. I've seen a shift in her. She's back to playing on at recess with friends. She comes home almost daily and is like, I met a new friend today. And you can see it in her eyes. She's excited. She's starting to live again. And so, I mean, I don't want this whole episode to go down the COVID rabbit hole because we've talked about it 1,000 times, but COVID has been weaponized. It has been weaponized to destroy small businesses and disrupt our schools and just really hurt people's livelihoods. That's what's the and Congress wants to act like the victims here. Like I just can't understand why we have millions of people out front pissed off at us. Are you fucking joking me? I mean, do you have any common sense? You have ruined this country over the last year, and you don't understand why you have an angry mob out front. And so, yeah, you had a bunch of people run into the Capitol, and what were their intentions? I don't know. And I can't speak to it. Even to this day, I did a show called Caravan After Midnight, and he was telling me, with John B. Wells, he was telling me last night that they still believe that a certain percentage of the people there were paid agitators meant to cause civil unrest. Is that true? Nobody fucking knows. And so I'm trying to choose my words carefully lately. and be upfront with people and say, I don't know. Because I've had so many people reach out to me, or I've even had people that were offended that I said, this didn't seem like it moved the needle in a positive direction. I had one guy write me and say, of all fucking people, I figured you would support watering the tree of liberty. And even you aren't supporting what they did at the Capitol. Well, I didn't see that as watering the tree of liberty. I didn't. I saw it as almost a demonstration to show Congress you're not as safe as you think. And you know what? There's an element of that I do think is a good thing. And I do think that maybe letting those people know, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, the people hold the power. Those are good things to an extent. But I'll tell you this, the backside of that is, guess what they're going to do now? They're going to, I mean, fuck, look at all the videos of how many and pictures of how many soldiers are sitting at the Capitol. They have armed themselves. They have put up 15-fold the amount of firepower and security that the Capitol has ever seen. And so, if you're one of those guys that thinks at some point we're going to have to go into Congress and have a reset, well, and the guy that wrote me saying, of all people, I thought you would want to water the tree of liberty. If that's where you're at on this, and that's where you think this country needs to go, well, good luck. Good luck doing it now, because guess what? That perimeter and that security force is going to be 100 times harder to break. And so you can't look at it as a circumstance where people are trying to overthrow the government. That wasn't what was happening. If that's what people were trying to do, you would have seen armed men having a coordinated attack. They would have been blocking the exit points. They would have had a perimeter, and they would have went in there with violence. And I don't mean violence pushing police officers out of the way. I mean with rifles, and they would have been killing people. That's what you would expect if you're telling someone we're going to go in and water the tree of liberty. And so I just feel like those are two very, very different things. So why it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be on one side or the other. You can say, yeah, I do support a reset of our nation at some point. I think that's almost inevitable at this point. We have a political elite class that is running rampant. But what we saw last weekend wasn't that. It certainly wasn't that. But I'll tell you what I did enjoy about it. I enjoyed the pictures of seeing those motherfuckers in there lying on the ground with absolute terror in their eyes. And it's just so ironic because nothing that transpired that day, and I will repeat this, and if you don't agree with it, you don't agree with it, but nothing that transpired that day should have made men curl up on the ground and be in absolute, utter terror of what was transpiring. There was pictures of people that you could tell were absolutely paralyzed with fear. And it's laughable to me. It's fucking laughable. It's a dude with horns on his head wearing a fucking buffalo hat and a bunch of dudes with MAGA hats and flannels on. Like, and that's going to make you fall to the ground in terror. And this is what it made me think about. The people in that room is who sends America's sons and daughters to war. I want you to think about that for a second. That's who sends our sons and daughters to the other side of the planet to kill other human beings and put their own physical safety in harm's way. And everybody is if you're listening to the show, you know my history, you know my struggles with mental health, you know that I've talked about PTSD, you know that it's a big part of my community, who I am, where I came from. And the motherfuckers that are signing the dotted line to make us go do those things, and maybe make us is a bad way of phrasing it because I volunteered, right? But they have the courage to sign a document to send guys like me to the other side of the world to kill people. And when a guy with horns pushes a door down, they fall to the fucking ground like the cowards that they are. And yes, I enjoyed seeing that because that paints a picture of how backwards this country is. You know, I love leadership. I talk about leadership often. I like reading and listening to Jocko because I think Jocko, while a lot of his leadership principles are basic military leadership, he has a gift to articulate them in a way that just makes sense and hits home. And he writes his books in a manner that are easy to read and easy to apply leadership principles. Leadership's a powerful thing, and that's why I geek out on it. That's why I read about it. But more importantly, anything that you can get out of a book or a manual, I have worked for men that I would follow into fire simply because the leadership qualities that they exude. I mean, there's a guy that I worked for in Iraq in 2004, 2005, who was a unit guy who took over my team. And I can tell you, and this isn't bullshit. If he called me tomorrow and said, "Hey, Greg, I put together an operation and I need 10 guys and you're one of them. I got you a plane ticket. You're leaving at this time and I'll meet you on the ground here." I would go anywhere on planet Earth and I would do whatever he asked of me. And that is because he has shown me time and time again in combat applications that he cares about me, that he will do anything to see me successful. And that's what he did time and time and time again. And all the men on the team would follow him to hell. And so I love working for strong leaders. It's something that's just, if you haven't worked for a great leader, you're missing something really important in life. And that's why I always tell people leadership is fluid. Leadership, I could be a leader today in a certain scenario, and tomorrow, somebody else that's more qualified or brings a fresh perspective or has experience in a certain realm over me. Hey, you take the lead on this one. That kind of stuff is fun and it really helps you grow as a man. So when I look at leadership and I put it on a pedestal and I attach a high level of importance to it, and then I see our country's leaders falling to the ground in terror, it just makes you take a step back and say, those aren't leaders. I mean, I think everybody listening already understands that the majority of people that are in our American politics, they're not leaders. They're there for power, they're there for money, they're there for greed, and they're there to appease certain lobbyists, and it just goes on and on and on. But to see them in a moment when when they had an opportunity to show some courage, like I obviously come from a generation of where I do think men and women bring different different skills and emotional abilities and physical abilities to the table. We're different creatures, right? And if you don't agree with that, I don't think you're being honest with yourself. And me as a man who is capable and trained and a fighter at heart, if I'm in a scenario where I think people are going to be in danger, I'm going to be helping the women that are around me get to safety. I'm going to be encouraging them and guiding them and saying, let's get over here. Let's hard point in this room. Okay, let's start building. Let's take some desks and build a barrier. Let's find a piece of cover. Like that's your opportunity as a man to step up, show some courage, and really guide people that are fearful. But no, we didn't see that. And I shouldn't say that it didn't happen because I'm sure that it did, but I'm focused on the pictures of the men I saw laying down on the ground between chairs, hiding, hiding with women next to them, cowering next to them, like absolute fucking bitches. And that is who may send your son or daughter to combat. Like, I can't reiterate that point enough. It was shocking to me. And so, for that reason alone, there's part of me that's like, I'm glad the Capitol got stormed for that reason. Like, it really showed the level of cowardice of some of the people that we entrust with America's most important asset, and that's our youth, right? That's our youth. And I don't want to go down some crazy rabbit holes that I don't know are fact or fiction at this point. But word on the street is, because I'm still very connected to the special operations community, word on the street is they're already getting spun up for something. So what would that be? You know, uh, the war machine is going to start churning again because it's going to be politics as normal. And I don't know what they're going to try and sell us on this time. I don't know if we're going to go to Iran for the people of Iran's freedom, or Iran has weapons of mass destruction, and it's absolutely unacceptable to allow them to develop a nuclear program. Like, something's coming down the pipe. Mark my words, in the next 2 years, they're going to have reasons to start dropping bombs on people. And, you know, I was a lot more confident going to war as a young man because I think I had more confidence in my government. But if the people that are in that room are the ones that are going to be sending our sons and daughters overseas, I'm to the point where I want to look at them and tell them to go fuck themselves. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Paleo Valley grass-fed beef sticks. Being someone that is nutrition and performance focused, I was immediately impressed with Paleo Valley's attention to detail and their refusal to cut any corners, making sure their products are top of the line. Their beef sticks are 100% grass-fed and grass-finished. These cows are never fed grain or any type of antibiotics, and the beef is sourced from small domestic farms inside of the United States. They use real organic spices to flavor their beef, and they don't use any products that have ever been sprayed with pesticides or use GMO corn. Most importantly, these beef sticks are fucking delicious. My kids have pretty much decimated the entire shipment we received last week, but it makes me happy to know that they're snacking on real, healthy, nutritious foods. Everyone in the family loves them, so they're an instant hit at our household. So why grass-fed? It's a healthier and more sustainable way to raise the animals while simultaneously helping regenerate soil and grasslands for overall sustainable farming. Not only does grass-fed beef contain higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids, but it contains the ideal ratio between omega-3s and omega-6s, which is vital in reducing inflammation. 100% grass-fed beef contains more calcium, more magnesium, potassium, zinc, as well as almost all vitamins across the board. It also contains elevated levels of CLA and glutathione, which are both powerful antioxidants. They have a bunch of delicious flavors. They have original, summer sausage, garlic summer sausage, teriyaki, and jalapeno, which I stay away from because I don't do spice. But if you're interested, go to paleovalley.com or check for the direct link in the show notes below. Use coupon code ENDLESS for a 15% off discount of your entire order. Paleo Valley, 100% grass-fed beef sticks. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Cured Nutrition. Cured is the leader in CBD supplementation with an entire line designed to take your everyday life to its ultimate potential. Their daily staples have been formulated with an in-house clinical herbalist, which has taken the traditional CBD regimen to an entirely new level of optimization. I'll tell you what I love about this company. I talked with the owner several months back about a partnership, and he said, Greg, I don't want you promoting any of our products and putting your seal of approval on them unless there's something you believe in 100%. I'd like to send you a couple months worth of our products and try them out, and only then, if you're a believer, we'd be interested in sponsoring the show. So right there, I appreciated the business model, and all that was left was to try the products. Since then, I've been jump-starting my day with the Cured Rise, which is their focus supplement. It's a powerhouse blend of functional mushrooms like lion's mane, cordyceps, broad-spectrum CBD, and powerful adaptogens. It gives me that clean, clear, and sustained energy without any jitters or crash. They also have a blend called Aura, which I really love. It's also a blend of powerful mushrooms, CBD, and adaptogens. And that's designed for immune health. We all know how important that is right now. It also contains vitamin D, prebiotics, and crucial antioxidants, which are delivered straight to the gut, which is the foundation of emotional and physical health. It's where the majority of your serotonin and immune function even begins. The last product and of course it's my favorite, is their Zen Broad Spectrum CBD Sleep Aid. I battle insomnia off and on for like 15 years, and it's actually the entire reason I've become a fan of CBD. It helps me sleep, and I'm no longer spending 4 hours a night staring at my ceiling fan feeling exhausted the following day. Zen has become Kierad's #1 relaxation and sleep product. It has ingredients like reishi mushrooms, ashwagandha, magnesium, passion flower, and of course, broad spectrum CBD. I take this stuff and actually wake up feeling rested. It's incredible. So go check them out. Cured Nutrition products are the answer for your daily dose of health. Visit Cured Nutrition, that's CURED nutrition.com, and be sure to use coupon code ENDLESS at checkout to save 10% off in your order. It's a very, very, very serious commitment. And until you've walked that walk, I almost feel like you shouldn't have the right to vote and recommend and take part in sending people overseas. And so that was one of my biggest takeaways from that. And it was astonishing to see. But at the end of the day, are any of us surprised? Are any of us surprised that our elected officials showed cowardice in a moment when they could have showed courage? No, of course we're not. It's almost to the point where it's expected, and that's sad. So now, after the riots were over and the dust settled, and I called it. I was talking to my buddies that night. I said, "Dude with buffalo horns will be arrested by the FBI, 100%." And dude with buffalo horns is probably going to go to federal prison for 5 years. And we'll see. But that's my prediction. And as someone that's had a lot of experience in the federal prison system, it's not as bad as people make it out to be, meaning a stint in federal prison is actually easier than state prison. A lot of when I was working in Los Angeles, a lot of the gangbangers getting arrested would want to go to the federal prison as opposed to San Bernardino. San Bernardino County Jail, have fun out there. Those are big old deputies that still fuck dudes up all the time. It's old school out there. And so the federal system is not as bad as it's painted in movies, but what it is it's long stints. The feds throw the book at people when it comes to sentencing. And you know, a lot of the young kids that we saw coming through the federal judicial system in Los Angeles that are used to banging and slinging dope and all the things that whole generation of youth are doing in those really poverty stricken areas of Los Angeles. When they come to the federal system and they get charged, it's not just, hey, you had a dime bag of weed. It's RICO, it's conspiracy. They start stacking the charges on. And when they're at sentencing, something that's interesting about the federal system is they don't read your sentence in years, they read it in months. And so the judge will be up on the stand and be like, I hereby sentence you to 120 months in federal custody. And you can see the look in their eyes like, oh, 120? Okay. Well, that's divided by 12. I don't know. Oh, fuck. I just lost a decade of my life. And anyone that's worked the federal judicial system can tell you they've seen that time and time and time again. The sentence is read. There's a lull where you see the wheels turning, they're doing the math, and then they're hit with it. And it's just like, oh, fuck. And so, yeah, the feds throw the books at people, man. That is one thing that you do not want to be sentenced federally because more often than not, you're looking at maximum. I mean, they have a sentencing guideline, but you see the guidelines are often the punishments are handed out on the high end. And so, yeah, that guy will be going to jail for a long time. And not only because, I mean, I don't know what laws he necessarily broke. It was obviously, like I said, it'll be some type of criminal trespass, but they'll probably attach a bunch of other things, maybe inciting a riot, or I don't even know. Because when I worked with the feds, I wasn't charging criminals, I was serving arrest warrants. Two very different things. The U.S. Marshal Service very rarely charges new crimes on suspects. They're simply the strong arm for working the federal warrants that the other agencies the other three-letter agencies have already put into the system. And so we'll see where that goes. But I, without a doubt, think they are going to use this opportunity to make an example out of people. You guys came and you stormed the Capitol. Watch this. And yeah, I think every person that they have tracked down that took part in that, they're probably going to get hammered pretty hard. But it's just like BLM and rioters, right? And I've talked about this before. I don't support the BLM movement. I think that the BLM movement was simply politicians and these people that were using people to push an agenda, and they were using people that they didn't particularly care about or anyone that they wanted to serve or help. And but regardless of why they were there, I'm sure there was a bunch of young people that believed in an ideology and just wanted to be part of something. And in their heart, they felt they were trying to be part of something good. Like, oh, cops are hurting young black men. Yeah, that sounds bad. Like, I'll march with that. And I bet the overwhelming majority of people that did go out and march are probably nice people. They're probably people you could sit down and have dinner with and get along with on a personal level. I don't doubt that for 1 second. But then you had the certain percentage of them that are opportunistic, that are just shitty people that used it as an opportunity to cause mayhem and chaos and burn and loot and hurt people. And those people are fucking pieces of shit. Like, and it doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. There's a percentage of the people in any organization, any group of people. They're just shitty people. There's no way around that. And so instead of acknowledging that on the other side, no, everybody that was at the Capitol rally was there for violence. They were there to storm the Capitol. They were there to hurt people. And it's got to the point where people can't fucking think outside of the box at all. Uh, Pat Miletich, any of you guys out there, gals that are into MMA, into fighting, I mean, Pat Miletich is an old school UFC fighter. I want to say he held the first welterweight title ever, and he was a commentator for an MMA organization. Oh, they found out he went to the rally. Fired. I don't know if I shouldn't say that. I don't know if he was officially fired, but they said put on a leave status, no longer allowed to commentate during events while they sort this out. And he's like, I didn't do anything violent. I didn't see anybody doing anything violent. He went there to support his president, and now he's being demonized. Two Seattle police officers went to the rally. They're both on leave pending investigation. What's there to investigate? I went to the fucking rally. Do you have pictures of me storming the Capitol? Yes or no? Do you have pictures of me doing something violent? Yes or no? And the answer is fucking no, because if they did, that would have been the headline of every article. You can Google it. That's not the headline. It's police officers attend Capitol riots. I doubt that. I really doubt the police officers went and started rioting and breaking down the doors. I doubt that. But again, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. And if I am, I'm sorry. But they haven't presented anything to suggest otherwise, other than they attended. And so think about that. You can go attend a BLM meeting or a BLM rally, and you're not automatically connected to violence and rioting. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You're applauded. It's a great thing that people are out there, and they're exercising their constitutional rights of assembly. But you go to do it for President Trump, every media source across the board just automatically attaches you to the violent mob that stormed the Capitol. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And what did we see immediately following that? Huge amounts of big tech censorship. Huge, to the point where they're banning Uh, Google and Apple are banning Parler. Like, well, they used it to incite the riots. Stop it. It's as clear as day now that big tech is helping push the radical agenda, and hopefully the market corrects itself. Hopefully, hopefully Elon Musk, maybe this will, maybe my podcast will work his way to his ears. We need a powerhouse in the industry that can make real change. And the interesting thing is, Parler's not a fucking radical right wing organization. Parler is a free speech organization. So you want to say things on the left, you want to say things on the right, go ahead. We're not going to censor you. And I don't care if it hurts people's feelings or if it sounds violent or scary. Let them fucking say it. Let people put information out there. If you want to look it up and you want to read it and you want to partake in it, then do it. And if you don't, don't. It's real simple. But the fact that they're censoring the president so much, it makes you ask yourself what's really going on. Because if they didn't have anything, if they didn't have a reason to censor him, then why are they censoring him? They obviously don't want him to be able to reach his voter base and share any type of messages. And so, in my opinion, censorship in itself suggests that there's fucking nefarious activity going on. Because if there wasn't, you wouldn't have to censor people. Why would you be afraid to let the truth get out there? You know? And that's what censorship is. Do you really think that people they're censoring it because they want to censor lies? They want to censor misinformation. Like, oh, thank you. Thank you for protecting me from misinformation, Twitter. I really appreciate that. Fuck no. It's ridiculous. We know exactly why they're censoring. And so, at the end of the day, I look at it like this. All of the outrageous behavior that took place inside of that building simply manifested into outrageous behavior outside of that building. You know, American politicians have been devaluing our citizens. They detract from people's worth. When you take away someone's ability to feed their own children, when you take away a man's ability, or I shouldn't even say a man, a person's ability to provide from their family, you're detracting from their worth, who they are as a person, what they bring to the table. Being able to support your family is just a fundamental need as a parent. And if it isn't, well, it fucking should be. And you're taking people's ability to do that away from them. The fastest way to lose, like again, like what Jocko calls leadership capital, right? The fastest way to lose that is to have the people underneath you be distrustful of you. And I guess I should break that down a little bit. Leadership capital is it's as a leader invests in his subordinates, he builds capital. And how does he invest in them? Well, he invests in them by showing them that he cares about them. So if you have a leader that continuously builds that capital because through trial after trial after trial, that person is there for you, that person supports you, that person gives you all the indicators that you should be able to trust them, that person's capital is high. And once somebody has a high amount of leadership capital, well, now they can ask you to do things, and without a second thought, you're willing to act on that person's behalf. And that's great leadership, because isn't that what leaders want? Leaders want their subordinates willing to do things for them when they ask. Well, the opposite is true. When you behave in a manner that makes people distrust you, then you're going to find yourself at the time when you ask somebody to complete a task, or you ask somebody to behave in a certain way, or you ask somebody to not storm the Capitol building. You're asking people to do things, but you have no leadership capital. And our politicians have lost that capital of their own accord. It's their fault. So obviously, people are not going to listen to what they have to say or put any worth into their words, you know? And they haven't been supporting anybody. They have not been supporting anybody. And so, why does it surprise you that people are absolutely fed up with American politics? For the last year, they fueled the flame of division and hatred, and then are somehow surprised when that hatred comes knocking on their door. Regardless of where you stand on the thing on the people pushing into the Capitol, regardless of if you enjoyed seeing that or if you were appalled, I don't care what side of the fence you're on. I don't think anyone should feel surprised. And that's what all the politicians were saying. This is the sacred place that represents our democracy. What? It's the place that represents you fucking the American people for a year. That's why people are out in droves surrounding the building, pissed off. Again, regardless of where you stand on any of this shit, to act like it's a surprise, has your fucking head been in the sand for the last year? Of course, there's fucking mobs of people out front that are pissed off at you. And for them to act like it is a surprise is fucking mind boggling to me. And so, you know, it's our democracy. This is our sacred place that represents our democracy. It's the same democracy that's been arresting women for going to the park with their children. The same democracy that shut down businesses. It's the same democracy that played politics with our stimulus money. Oh, yeah, while giving Pakistan, what was it, $10 million for gender studies? And you can't understand why you have people out in the thousands that are just absolutely fed up. I mean, think about that. Let's break that down for a minute. And it's so infuriating at times because it was called the COVID relief bill, right? Like, this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a fucking pandemic that is breaking the back of our country. You're not allowing people to go to work, and people are losing their businesses. They're going bankrupt. They can't fucking pay for their mortgage. They can't pay for their rent. And after 8 months of bullshit, you gave them $600. It's insulting. It's fucking insulting. You gave them $600. What does $600 do in 8 months? Oh wait, I apologize. There was another paycheck 8 months earlier for $1,200. So in a year, you've seen $1,800. And I just, that in itself is just a joke. But what's even more of a joke is that the politics sat at Capitol Hill, or the politicians sat at Capitol Hill playing politics with that money, saying, "Oh, we need to do this, and we need to give $10 million to Pakistan, and this much needs to go to Egypt," and on and on and on. And what's bizarre to me is I was reading something yesterday that people are just like, "Hey, just because we're in a pandemic doesn't mean foreign aid stops." Well, actually, it could mean that, dum dum. It fucking absolutely could mean that. Like, if there's ever a time to pump the brakes on foreign aid and start pumping that money back into our communities, I'd say it's right now. And I don't think you have to be some fucking college educated economist to say, well, our own citizens are losing everything right now. Maybe we should invest in them. And regardless, it's perception is reality, right? We have a lot of people that are going through hard times and they see you sending $10 million to Pakistan. I don't care what you could have put that money towards in America. I don't care where you sent it, but you could have sent it somewhere within our fucking country and helped our citizens. But you're not doing that. You're deciding to send $10 million to Pakistan. And then, oh, we're not going to sign it, or we're going to veto it, and we're going to do this if you don't put that in. And it's like, fuck you, man. And so, you know, this entire time when everything was happening, like, oh, well, we're going to offer business loans. We're going to offer business loans. And I mean, lucky I found myself in a position where, yeah, I can admit it. America showered me with love and they helped my family out. And America gave me enough money to allow my business to survive through the pandemic and through the shutdown. And we're open again now. And I've been very vocal about being open. But we were shut down in the beginning, and we were struggling trying to figure out what we're going to do. And my wife looked through a lot of the small business loans that were being presented at the time. Every single one of them, small print. You may have to pay this back. It was very convoluted, and it was articulated in a manner that basically says like, um, yeah, we'll loan you the money, and depending on how things play out, you may or may not be responsible to pay back the amount in full. Well, I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. If anybody can ever fucking get money out of you and then make you pay it back, they're going to do that. Like, especially if it has any type of attachment to a government organization, you know? And so, of course, they're going to come back and try and take that money and get that money back. They're fucking money grubbing hounds. That's exactly what they're going to do. And so, when you see Americans struggling to keep their businesses open, and then you see them playing politics with the relief fund, people are going to be fucking outraged, and they have every right to be. And so, there's a lot that went on over this last year, and I think this was kind of the culmination of everything. It was just it was like everybody's been put in a pressure cooker, and the election and the COVID and the fucking the fraudulent shit going on, the Dominion software, the ballots coming in at midnight and changing the trajectory of the outcome, on and on and on and on. And people are pissed off. And that's what you get. When you get pissed off people, you're going to have some fucked up shit happen. And I would say this to the people that are acting like they're fucking appalled, sitting up at Capitol Hill, just acting fucking appalled that some people push the door down. You should be fucking thankful that that's what happened. You should be fucking thankful that the dudes dressed up in face paint and costumes walked through the halls and took selfies. If it doesn't make you fucking open your eyes, I don't know what's gonna. But that's a blessing for you guys. When you look at how many people are pissed off and how many people you fucked over, and you had people walk through the halls and take a selfie on Nancy Pelosi's desk. That's what you got, and you're fucking crying about it still. And you got fucking 300 troops there now. Cowards, 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 all of you. None of them can look in the mirror and be like, hey, you know what? This is probably a result of how fucked up we've been running the country. When we look out and see fucking 50,000 pissed off people, instead of playing the victim like you have for the last fucking 2 weeks, why don't you go look in the mirror and say, you know what? Oh, I wonder what I could have done better. And then be honest with people about it. Get on fucking television, get on your fucking social media and be like, you know what? I'm going to take some responsibility for why so many Americans are pissed off and feeling anger and feeling outraged. Take some fucking ownership, you know? But ownership is a lost thing in American politics. And so, I'll leave you guys with this. I don't know how we move forward and get out of this. I feel like there's two very different trains of thought. I feel like people are on different trajectories, and I feel like the left and the right are having a wedge driven in them farther and farther and farther. But I saw a meme the other day, and it was a cartoon. It wasn't a photograph, and it was of what you would consider your typical BLM protester. It was a black dude with dreads, and I think his pants were kind of sagging. And then standing next to him is what you would envision of a typical like Trump supporter at a Proud Boys rally or something. He had like a Confederate flag shirt on. He was holding some type of rifle, and they were shaking hands, and it said, "Imagine how afraid the politicians would be if we all got along." And that's where I'm at on this stuff, man. Most people, regardless of if you're left or you're right, you're gay, you're straight, you're black, you're white, most people, what do we want out of life? We want to see our families prosper. We want to have security. We want to be able to put food on our table. We just want to live our lives. And again, like I said earlier, it doesn't matter what organization we're talking about. There's going to be a percentage of people that are just shitty people. What do you do with that? But for the rest of us, how do we unify and be together on this? I think we need to unify and push back against the political elite that are just using us as pawns to perpetuate their wealth and perpetuate their power. And that's the conclusion that I'm coming to on 2020. They have used the American public as pawns to completely push their own agenda forward. And it's sad. It's sad that that's the conclusion that I'm coming to. But again, COVID was weaponized. The profession of police officers has been demonized. Everybody's racist. Everybody's transphobic. Everybody hates gay people. It's like no matter where you look on social media or no matter where you look on your television, it's this person hates that person and this group's a victim and this group's discriminated against, on and on and on and on. And the truth is, I think 90% of that is a bunch of fabricated bullshit. And so that's why I do what I do now. I've had enough people reach out to me and say, "Hey, I appreciate your podcast. I appreciate your voice." But all my voice is a representation of what I hear and see with all of the people that I interact with the community. I just happen to have a microphone and a Rodecaster Pro in front of me, and I'm able to articulate this and put it out to you guys. And so that's where we're at, guys. It's time to put all the bullshit behind us and understand that most people need to figure out a way to be in this together. We do that. That's how we take our country back. And we don't have to storm capitals, and we don't have to burn buildings down, and we don't have to fucking loot stores, and we don't have to hurt people. We just show them that we're unified, and we fucking vote them out, and we start over. Because if we don't, we know what option 2 looks like. We know what option 2 looks like. And I don't think there's a person in America right now that thinks that that's an impossibility. So again, thanks for listening, guys. Sorry that I didn't get to have my killer podcast that I recorded with the company commander out of Fort Lewis, but I'm going to get that to you guys in about 2 weeks, and we'll be back on schedule. All right, guys, take care.